I love people who are passionate about whatever they do, whether it's professional, whether it's art. I love that because that gives my life a lot of meaning. Like, I've always loved all kinds of art. I love reading. I love talking to people and people that really care deeply about those things. I love that. And not all of that, unfortunately, in the society can keep you afloat and keep you alive. And what can is worth spending time on so that you can continue to contribute to society in a more meaningful way, which is providing those skills that maybe we don't, in this certain situation, provide you sustenance for, but it provides sustenance for people like me.
If you can be happy about one thing, be happy that you woke up today and you just have the opportunity to do whatever you are doing. Some might call it super deep and cheesy. I don't
Whatever.
give a fuck, because that is what it's all about. It's simple, chill, be happy, treat others kind, live in the moment, be here now, whatever you want to do.
It's getting hot in here too.
Take off all your clothes. Can I just like have my shirt off?
This is hilarious, dude.
Should we just all have our shirt off?
So here we are, the Weird Music Podcast with Team Goose, Matt Kolinski, Bruce Robinson from the Great Beyond, 1111 Group represent. Hello, everyone. So last time we had Kolinski on this podcast was day that lives in infamy, the first day of COVID, fucking bullet to the face of the music industry. How did that ultimately become something that spiraled into an opportunity?
Well, that day was crazy. It was my mom's 70th birthday. I don't even think I called my mom on her birthday that day. I think you were the only person outside of a promoter calling me to tell me that shows were canceled that I spoke to that day. It was horrible. It seemed like it was going in that direction. While they were on the West Coast with Pigeons, that's when the first COVID case happened. Really, what happened was immediately Ben Baruch, who I co-managed the band with, and is just phenomenal, creative, like genius, immediately was just like, I have this idea. And he came up with the idea of Live from Out There. He just wanted to give people entertainment and create a revenue stream for the artist as well. That became a discussion in the Goose camp of, well, we'll do our own kind of like streaming event. The bingo tour idea, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to come up with something creative, fun, and interactive with people who are sitting on their ass, doing nothing. I also had like an epiphany that, I'm out here, with Goose and other artists that I work with all the time. It came to the realization that I was not like plugged into my local community. I started to make an effort to reach out to people, and about 6 of us started getting together every week. We just figuring out like, what can we do? We ended up going to this place called the Essex Experience. It's in Essex, Vermont, like 15 minutes outside of Burlington. We started having these like pod shows for like 100 people, and just like would spray paint a circle on the ground. This has morphed into this giant thing over the last year. This is now a huge outdoor venue. It's 1,500 people. We used a repurposed barn, one of the first barns built in Vermont, and we're building a stage. Nice. None of this would have happened if COVID didn't happen. We would have never like started these conversations of, how can we put on music in our local community, which evolved into like, hey, let's build a stage and get a brand new sound system and work with the community.
Some of these venues you would never go see music at before. Yeah. And some of them are beautiful. The above grounds at Caverns in Tennessee, Riverfront Park, right. Perry, I wasn't there, but just streaming. All of these cool little different vibes, and all of them have their own unique environment and the nature surrounding them, and all of that like just adds to a great vibe to a lot of these shows.
I want to ask you both, from that tremendously awful thing, would you say you guys like maybe even grew, like learned some sort of life lesson?
A lot of people pivoted, within the industry. Some people are just like, this isn't for me. I'm going to do what I got to do. The guy that I'm working on that venue with, Now I'm like opening an office co-share space for like artists and like, musicians and graphic artists and stuff like that.
Nice.
And that's kind of like a new space for me personally. So like I'm like expanding myself personally, and I owe it all to the virus.
Yo, did either of you expect Goose to blow up like this?
I've always known that, like, in terms of bands like the Beatles that I grew up with, that John Lennon and Paul McCartney were one of the best songwriting duos maybe ever in American music history. And a lot of those songs are simple. Hello, goodbye,
Mm-hmm.
And like, they're incredible and people still love them now. And a lot of the things that I think sometimes gets caught up in the mix with jam bands and psychedelic rock bands and people want to improvise is that some success, especially in American music, is drawn from songs. Like, having good songs sounds simple, and it's very, very hard to achieve. And songs aren't like poetry. They can be very simple sometimes, and it's just a matter of how many people can connect with them or sing along to them. They don't necessarily need to be, mind-bogglingly complex.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys actually happen to have complex lyrics, really nicely written lyrics. Some sound poetic, some of them are simple and fun, and they complement the music well.
They have these like really welcoming elements, and then they also go so far to the edge.
They maintain an aesthetic that's still unique. There always seem to be this like path, this narrow path, and like everybody clumps a lot of jam bands into that, and it's hard to find a unique sound in that. Everybody's always going to find similarities to the other bands in the scene, and people still try to do that with these guys. But like, if you really listen, man, they've always had a unique enough sound
100%.
and good enough songs that I've always thought, like, great musicians and great songs and good musicianship, and if they can stay together, and maybe it'll happen. And I think a lot of our friends thought that, and that's why we continue to go to shows for so long.
To answer on his behalf and on behalf of all of the homies in Connecticut, the answer is absolutely 100% yes. Bruce and Coach, Greg Knight, and a lot of our friends like that are infamous Connecticut components. As the band continues to grow, I mean, that same foundation in Connecticut that John instilled and brought all these friends in not just Connecticut but around the country, like you was mentioning, that vibe is like really expelled like in the band's energy. We started as this like Connecticut family, not just with like the homies, but there's like a family vibe, like moms and nephews, and like my son comes to shows, and it's a family affair. And
Puppies.
Shout out to Shasta. Yeah. Shasta is Rick's dog, tour dog. So fun fact, today is Jeff Arelo's 1 year anniversary in Goose.
From the Bingo Tour.
Tomorrow is our production manager, Marty Getty.
Yo, shout out to Marta.
Sometimes when I work with bands or I'll meet someone, they'll be like, hey, you should work with this band, or hey, I'm in a new band, like, you should check this out. I know you have connections, can you help us book some shows? And that's what Chris did. He was like, hey, I just played my first show with this band Goose. We played a local showcase at the Capitol Theater in Portchester, New York. And he sent me, I was like, cool, man, I just take it at face value. Cool, send me a couple videos. He immediately sends me Arcadia from then. I listened to that for about 30 seconds. I called him back and I'm like, I'm fucking in, dude. And within 5 minutes, I think I was talking to Rick on the phone with Chris, and I was like working with the band. And that was, so to answer the question from my perspective, 100 million times, like I knew that there was something special about the songwriting. There was something in there in the tone of Rick's voice, the songwriting. It's not just about good music and good writing. There's so much reality and like experience, like hurt, and like you can fucking feel that shit. And I mean, I felt it in 30 seconds in that song. But you know, you take a little deeper dive and a deeper dive, and you know, there's just so much connection there with the music they write. And this is early on that I'm talking about.
Were you out in the crowd last night, you two?
Yes.
Yeah. You saw
Definitely,
people's
I usually try as much
I
as
always
can,
walk
dude.
around.
Yeah.
I listen to the music. I observe people. It makes what I do feel that much better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, you know, kind of like research too. Like what kind of feedback, like I want to see like someone having fun, and this is what was happening during a certain moment of a certain song. And I'm going to bring that to like Rick or Peter and be like, hey, I was watching this chick do this when you were doing this run on the guitar.
So we're talking about this culture, this goose culture, this jam band culture. I mean, it goes beyond goose. Matt, you've managed for bands like Dope Pop, Turquoise, it goes on. Being behind the scenes, and then, you know, we were talking about going around the crowd, seeing eyes lighting up at certain parts of songs. Does it ever land the way you feel like, whether or not you realize it, you've been a bridge to a lot of people finding this and then having this experience?
No, because I do it for you. Like, I don't do it for me. What helps me breathe and like subsides my anxiety is to make the world a more happier and like peaceful place. And like by me like impacting other people, then I know like when I come here that's gonna happen.
We have a lot of people around the band whose personalities are naturally like that. Like what Matt's saying, it's so subtle that it's natural for him. And it's like one of the reasons why we love Matt and we love a lot of the people that we have on the crew. And like, we've just been able to be opportunistic about having all these people around that have that same kind of ideal. That like, we just want people to have fun, you know, and we want people to be able to have fun together.
When I show up to shows, the first thing I hear is "Hi, Dad." Everyone calls me Dad.
Dad.
Because I want to make sure that good, bad.
Do you ever look at your family and have a tear come, like seeing how fucking happy we all are in the crowd?
Yeah. I mean,
well, definitely, right? Like,
let's go to Broke Down Palace last night. I watched everyone, people hug, cry, and that is what it's all about.
Yeah.
If you can be happy about one thing, be happy that you woke up today and you just have the opportunity to do whatever you are doing. You know?
And to be able to get there and thoroughly enjoy an experience. You know, it's just music. It's just temporary.
It's a moment together.
And to be able to let that wash over you, it's so nice.
You know, some might call it super deep and cheesy. I don't give a fuck. Because that is what it's all about. It's simple, chill, be happy, treat others kind, live in the moment, be here now, whatever you want to do. You know? And
it might sound cliche, but it is really that simple. I've always just been a huge fan of music and in general and live music as well. And I like the fact that I can go connect with fans and know a ton of people out there and be able to just walk around to whatever pod and see other smiling faces and party with them for a little bit and get to enjoy pieces of the show that they're enjoying with them. And like that means everything to me. Somebody came up to me, right? Like, I've been single for a while, ladies, and somebody came up to me in the merch booth and was like, you know, it must feel like being a proud parent. Obviously, I can't say what that's like. And, you know, I wouldn't even feel right saying what that's like. But however, like, that might be the best way of putting it that I've really ever thought about, was that it's almost like this. I've always wanted to see all of my friends succeed in whatever they're doing, but have felt this very close connection to these guys, and watching them succeed like unequivocally without anything to do with me was just so satisfying.
As you two being so close with the band, mostly anyone listening is on the outside kind of looking in compared to you two. What is something that you both understand and know about Goose that you think maybe newer fans just might not know yet, just might not realize about the band?
If you like what you hear now, then buckle your seatbelts. The band has a long way to go. They're just getting started. Moon Cabin was their first album. Shenanigans came out a couple weeks ago. It was their first album in 5 years. They spent a lot of time during COVID, again, silver lining, that allowed Shenanigans to get finished and allowed the band to do some other cool shit. And that was necessary so that we can like kind of level up. If you're into what the music and the scene and the culture is doing for you now, then I think that they'll probably, trust me, no one else does, but you'll feel comfortable for a long time.
It's not just work. It's that combination of this talent that's in these guys, the mindset that they love doing what they're doing. They love playing with each other and finding each other and finding that right vibe between them. That is something that I think sometimes people might miss.
So tonight, like when you're watching the show and it's like set break and you're talking to someone that's their first show, how would you answer your question?
I love their lyrics. I love their songs. Yeah. Newer fans really just might not understand the depth. Like jam band, really fun to dance to, goes so far beyond that. It's an intimate thing to have a relationship with songs.
Yeah, that's like an easy cop-out jam band. I mean, if you don't see what the play is here, when the band is releasing songs with Vampire Weekend and doing a lot of and Fred Fest with Dawes, Dr. Dog, Hiss the Messenger, you know, like that indie thing. If you can't read between the lines, then you probably need a new pair of glasses, I guess.
I like to call it psychedelic rock because most people like look. People don't know about the jamming community. Like people seem to forget that there's hundreds of millions of people out there, and not all of them are huge music fans. And like
most of them are not jam bands,
and some of them like music, and they have never heard of what a jam band is in their life. This thing that's happening with them, I'm always timid about talking about it because I wanted to keep going. You know, it's almost superstitious, but it's true.
Can I talk
Rick
about
is
Superstition real quick?
Like by Stevie Wonder.
I have to talk about
Superstition in the
I
way.
never grew a mustache. And Rick was like, dude, like the guys started doing like these mustache tours like in spring 2019. Then they were like, we're doing it in the summer, and I'm like, dude, I'll grow if I don't shave for like 30 days. It's like this long. This took me to get it this long. It would take me like 3 months. You should go. But here, what I'm here to say to someone like you through experience, thank you, Rick, is that I did it. But I did it. So the first full stash show I had was Dome Fest 2019.
With that 518 or whatever.
I would say that other than the 420 run that they did in April a month earlier, that was the start of it all, man. I mean, that was when really it was Dome Fest. It was Beanstalk the next month. It was the infamous Peach show set 7/27/19. Yep. And then I'm gonna go out of order here. Then there's the Late Night at Resonance in September of 2019. But what a lot of people don't talk about is what was the fucking festival in Covington? Birds of a Feather. I managed Rocky Mountain Boys as well.
I was at Birds. That shit was amazing.
There was a really interesting time in the band, and I'm just going to leave it at that because it's a very personal thing. The band was on the road. They were really firing on all cylinders. Birds of a Feather, Ben Gurley and Jason Wolf, mandolin and banjo, played with Peter and Rick. They did this like
that first night. The first night. Yeah.
They'd never met each other, and it's like these like indie jam band kids, and if you know Rocky Mountain Boys,
bluegrass guys, right?
Well, I mean, there's more to it than that, but you know, like that, yeah, Appalachian bluegrass. But that was great, and it really set a vibe. Same thing, you know, Rumpke promotes that kind of thing too, the community, and just a different group of people, and. But that Birds of a Feather show was huge, and I don't remember where I was.
I want to pivot this conversation a little bit away from Goose. A lot of people that listen to this podcast are in bands. Like, whether they're a creative freelancer, whether they're an entrepreneur. I mean, both of those are kind of being in bands and people surrounding bands.
For sure.
Matt, you're a freelancing entrepreneur, and now you're with an organization. You're helping creatives. Zooming away from Goose, like any people starting out on their journey, making art, freelance, whatever it might be, maybe looking to make a living off of it. From 10,000 feet zoomed out, like what is some key principles, some advice you could offer to that kind of listener here?
I would say, number one, you have to believe in yourself. And at least I know that it's, some people will be like, oh, I just kind of like winged it, you know, and jumped in, and that's fine, but at least have an understanding of like what you're going to do. But believing in myself and that I can do it, and maybe have a support system around you, your friends or your family is clutch, because it's like, you know, super dark sometimes. It's not easy to create longevity, you know, it's longevity, not like instant gratification. I would say make sure that you have a plan of some kind, do your research ahead of time, come up with a business plan, make sure that your financial status is comfortable. You know, don't just be like, oh, I got $750 in the bank, I'm going for it.
Well, and that's
that ain't gonna do it, man. I'll tell you that.
And that's what I was gonna say. Like, you just can't. The starving artist ideal is great, but like, you do have to understand that perseverance, that persistence, that determination, and your belief in yourself is extraordinarily important. You also have to temper that with realistic expectations and understanding that it is a business. If you're going to try to, like, we don't live in a world where you cannot make money. You have to. And if you're going to wear yourself thin and hurt your mental health or your physical well-being on something that then you might not be able to support yourself with, or you might not be able to support other things you want to do in your life beyond being a creative artist, you have to be realistic with yourself with that. And a lot of people are. And a lot of people will, you know, it's not foregoing your artistry, not foregoing your creative self, but you might have to focus on just something that seems, you know, route or boring to make your living such that you can do your art and maybe not need to make everything off of that, because it's really, really hard.
That's overlooked.
I would also say
it's hard.
Like, totally contradictory to like what I just said. Do you like don't be miserable. My dad was a plumber. He was miserable. My brother worked at Caterpillar. They both passed away. And I remember the day my dad passed away, I got my first opportunity to be a tour manager. And they offered me like $50 a week and $1 a signature on the email list. And and I had just started dating my now wife, and I went home.
Loving
and
Nicole.
I told her that I wanted. I called my brother, and I said I want to do this, and he was like, you know, Dad never did. He was like blue collar. He provided for the family, which is great, but he never did what he wanted to do. And he was like, do what you want to do, man. Like, just do it. And I was like, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I picked up my check from work the next day. This is totally contradictory to what I said. What I said before was based on my experience from my choices that I've made, right? Like, but it doesn't mean that that's how I did it. How I did it is I dove head first, and I was hungry, man. I was fucking hungry. I had, at the time, my son was 1.5 years old. I wanted to feed him and, you know, nurture him and be a good father
and what you want to do,
a good role model, and show him my path to success, and show him that you can do anything, dude. You can do anything.
I always like to temper these conversations, but like, that's absolutely true. You do have to do you. Life is too short. Like, you need to try it. You just also need to not, like, you always need to have that somewhat logical perspective. Like, if creative artists, like, I know you want to pursue your passion. You should. I love art. I love amateur art, professional art. It doesn't matter what it is. Like creative arts, writing, music, anything. Definitely do it. Definitely take care of yourself in however you need to. Mm-hmm. If you can subsist in that way and be happy, then great. If you can subsist,
don't make stupid choices. Take chances.
Take chances. If they don't work,
calculated risks,
have that plan. You had mentioned having a plan, and it's like, it's a balance. It's hard. None of it's easy. That's why we're kind of contradicting a lot of this stuff. But like,
there's a yin and yang to it.
It's
of this
really
radical self-belief.
Really important to have
to dive in.
all of that in a net and not be able to be so attached to one way or another. Like, it's just not all my personal liberty, because you have no personal liberty if you can't take care of yourself and feed yourself. Always being mindful of that. And from an artist's perspective, I think there's a lot of people who want to forego that realistic perspective on life that unfortunately has to accompany everything you're doing. I've had these conversations with a lot of people. I feel like it's important to understand. And I've tried to explain it about the Goose Guys too. There's opportunity, there's chance, they struggle at times. It's hard for every band. That's why there's thousands of bands that don't make it. And that's not something that anyone should let affect themselves as a person. Just react to it. React to it in an appropriate way that builds you up and keeps your life going, rather than something that brings you down because all you want to do is make this art, but now it's impacting your life, and that's going to impact your ability to make that art.
What was the question?
Seriously though,
is this a philosophy class?
Yes. Needing to satisfy yourself financially through art limits the quality of art, because the purpose of art never was inherently to make currency. Is you make art, to make an impact on people, to make an impact on yourself. It's just like a spiritual thing in its core. Now we live in a capitalistic society.
I kind of think that's funny.
Different.
Like, so many times, like, I hear musicians like, dude, I just want to like play music. I don't want to make money. That's a lie, dude.
I have to disagree too, because like Michelangelo painting the ceiling of the Vatican, like, he was getting paid.
Basically what Canvas presented was like the foundation of what like art is supposed to be.
To me, I don't think just having to accept the fact that you live in a society where you need this kind of sustenance for money, that it does limit your art. It doesn't. Make the art that you want to make and do it as well as you can. If that art is not making you sustenance, just accept that fact and keep doing what you can so that you can keep creating it.
It's definitely, there's some sweat equity in there. It's an investment in time, and it's not hard. Go through depression, and I think people are like real, true, like starving artists are like prepared to do that.
They are,
but
definitely.
Sometimes like people, they lose it, man. Like, and if you don't find a balance of like, at least some kind of income or, something. Like,
you need a foundation.
And look, I don't like it. I have hated working for the corporate world the entire time I have, and I've just always loved computers and software, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that, but that tempers like a lot of the things I don't like working in the corporate world. But I do it because I wouldn't be able to do this stuff.
I would say this.
There's a lot.
Just a little bit goes a long, long way.
Ooh. So we're going to quote Goose lyrics here, I guess. But that's, I just care. I care about people. I love people who are passionate about whatever they do, whether it's professional, whether it's art. I love that because that gives my life a lot of meaning. Like, I've always loved all kinds of art. I love reading. I love talking to people and people that really care deeply about those things. I love that. And not all of that, unfortunately, in this society can keep you afloat and keep you alive. And what can is worth spending time on so that you can continue to contribute to society in a more meaningful way, which is providing those skills that maybe we don't, in this certain situation, provide you sustenance for, but it provides sustenance for people like me who really appreciate that artistic ability and however it comes out.
So can I ask you a question? I'm just curious why you brought this up.
Yeah, thank you. I don't like art when I can see that there's an agenda of like, I'm trying to make this product to please this kind of consumer so I can make money. You can tell
Like cookie cutter Beyonce.
You can tell without naming names if art is made for the love of the passion of the art, or if it. I love Beyonce too. Or if it's like if art's being made as
I'm saying pop music. There's an agenda.
There's an agenda. It's there. I mean, artists are marketers too, and I, as a lover of art, I want to see artists financially. They do something from 9 to 5. If needed, if they need this foundation,
if they need to,
and that way, I want them to. The metric of measuring art and music by how much money it can make is not a true metric. It's not a true metric. It is what rules the world a little bit, and it's a double-edged sword.
Again, making money is not a true metric of anything other than knowing and capitalizing on how to make money. That's all that metric has anything to do with.
Exactly.
And, I grew up around people who always worshiped money and thought everybody that had a lot of money was a genius. And I noticed that they were extremely dumb and drove beautiful cars and didn't know how to drive them, for example. And it's like, again, none of it means anything other than you're making money. I was a big fan of pop music, huge fan of pop music. There are artists out there like George Michael, dude, who is an incredibly talented, put all of his passion into making the most incredible, best pop music possibly. Is the voice of an angel.
Pop.
It's the voice of an angel.
Pop music.
But no, well, I know it's understandable. But
like talking like
again, I get where you're coming from in terms of people like literally just trying to make stuff to make money. Like it's media, it's marketing, whatever, advertising, whatever. But in terms of music, man, there you can take anything to a very deep and an extremely, extremely skillful level.
I want to see art being made because fuck it, life is short. We're gonna die. I have a reason to be here. It's not to sit at my desk and stare at this computer.
It's not.
It's deeper than that. It's to make a deep connection. It's to have inspiration in me come out and touch you, and for whatever emotional energy it is. And too often it's like, people do this to make money, but that's putting the cart in front of the horse in the wrong way. It's money allows us to have the freedom to be on the bus. It's not the bus exists to make money. The money exists to allow us to be on the bus, to keep us making art. It's not the other way around. I mean, it shouldn't be the other way around. Can't.
I understand, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I guess technically from a partially capitalist perspective, sometimes you do think of how you can do something to make money. Like I certainly do.
It's a nuanced double-edged sword.
Dude, it sucks because
I'd love to fight it.
We didn't choose to be born, right? We're spit into this environment, and this is what we have to do to survive.
So, Matt, you've got fucking skin in the game in this music scene. As someone, partly driving this culture, if you could just make one change about this scene, snap your fingers and make it happen, what would that change be?
That would have been an awesome question to ask me the last time we spoke on March 12th, 2020. And what I would have answered it, the way I would have answered it then is that I would have said, in our industry, I would like to see something happen that would make people in the industry become less douchey. There are some people like that, and to get people to mentor a little bit easier and answer the phone for the young bucks and pay it forward and all that. And silver lining COVID, which has been brought up multiple times here, I feel like that's happened. Some of these agencies have crumbled, these boutiques have happened. I just want the industry people to get along in a more synchronized manner for the greater good. instead of being fucking greedy.
What about you, Bruce?
Coming from a slightly different perspective than Matt, like, I just would love to see people in the fan community just understand what the band and what we all have just been trying to do. It's just making it comfortable and a fun place for everybody, like, regardless of how you have fun or how you want to be comfortable. Like, we want to support that, and the band wants to support that, and they do that through their music, and we try to do that through our outreach. And I just want people to understand that there's always time to have fun and time to, you know, jaw off and be sarcastic. And I love that stuff, and so do a lot of us. But, like, well, you know, we're trying to grow a community that can be very comfortable and very enjoyable for everyone. And there's going to be a lot of different personalities and a lot of different people and a lot of different ages and a lot of different genders, like we talked about. And, like, just accept that, you know, and don't fight against it. And if it's like, if it feels too soft, well, at least it's too soft. At least it's loving. At least it's coming from a point of compassion.
If you could summarize what you just said in one sentence, how would you do that?
You know what you just said.
It'd be cliche. It'd be cliche.
Okay.
You want to summarize it in one sentence, like, you know, love each other, peace and love, blah, blah, blah.
Don't be a hater.
Don't be a hater, but, you know,
Keep it simple.
Keep it
simple, stupid.
Keep it simple in a lot of ways. Honestly,
thing.
hey, if something's aggravating you, move on from it. You don't need to respond to it. You know,
Pause and reflect.
Understand that people are different, and just try to, like, understand them and love them for who they are. You know, and that's going to go a long way.
Matt Kolinski with 1111 Group, killer artist manager. Bruce, I love your personality in your podcast. You hold it down in the Goose Group. That shit is a tough job, moderating. And I have respect for you, sticking your neck out, keeping things in line. Please be less of a hater. But if you want to shitpost, just do it in a shitposting group. People out there listening, I assume you have great taste in music. You know, maybe, you know, you are a creator of some sort. Last little bit, if you could give one direct piece of advice to the person listening as we leave off, what do you want to leave them off with?
The message, I don't care how old you are, is to pay it forward in a positive manner. Teach someone one thing that will stick with them for the rest of their life, that will create positive change for the people that will be around when you're not. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dad.
Thank you. So where can we find you? I know, Bruce, we can find you at the Great Beyond Podcast. Matt's email, don't blow that shit up if you're just looking to get gigs.
Bruce knows my handle on Instagram now. I just learned it.
I just figured out how to use Instagram, yes. So I am also on Instagram.
What's my Instagram, Bruce?
At Yeti, YHETTY 78. Okay, so I'm not following you. But you can find me, more importantly, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, in a puddle at a Goose Show. But yeah, you know, we're out there, dude, and we just love everybody, and we just want everybody to have fun too, you know. So we're out here.
On behalf of Goose, I just want to give a shout out to everyone who is listening and coming out to these shows, and the promoters that are making it happen. You're doing a service to everyone to keep us moving forward right now. And you have no idea what you're doing internally, but maybe you do, because you feel it too. We feel it every day. Thank you.
Pay it forward. This has been the Weird Music Podcast. Special birthday shout out to the producer, Katie Daly. Always killing the game.
Oh, happy birthday, Katie.
Thank you for listening. Shout out to the sponsor, SEM Tickets. We love y'all. And see you real soon.